Hey guys, I'm Ben of Craig 3D Printing Space. Today, we're going to talk about the Zonestar Z9M2. So without further ado, why don't we just dive in? Let's go. The Z9M2 offers you a 300 by 300 bed with a 400 axis on the Z. Well, let's start off with the main control. You have your typical setup with your normal screen with a dial push button assembly. The printer itself takes up a very big foot space. As you can see next to my dual extruder from Zonestar, it is a very, very large printer. But let's go over some more of the features before you discredit this for being such a large printer. As you can see here, the power supply plate also holds the board. It's part of the structure of the actual exterior of the extrusions, so it gives you a lot better performance by not allowing any type of flex in the frame. It is a steel plate, and it holds it very, very securely using what they're calling boat nuts, or in our method, T-nuts. It did come with a 30 amp power supply and a Z-rib board with version 5. At the rear of the printer, you can actually see where the two spool holders are. They do hold full-size 1 kilogram spools. This is an empty spool, and as you can see, I almost ran out on one of my last prints. This is a Bowden system, so everything runs up to the motors up here in the corner. The way they're mounted, especially with the chain, makes this Bowden design a little bit better than most. And all the pieces that hold it on are either steel or aluminum, so they're less likely to break like a printed part. I forgot to mention that here on the plate that holds your power supply and your board, there's an integrated fan for board cooling. It's already in the design, so you don't have to add this later. So that's another bonus to using this printer. As you can see here, the ZAxis is using 2 lead screws. And on those lead screws is the timing belt. This allows both lead screws to spin at the same time and doesn't rely on a bearing on the other side to run up and down that lead screw. This may not be the most ideal setup where I would prefer 2 Z motors, but it is effective and has yet to fail for me. I've printed probably close to 200 prints on this printer so far, and I haven't seen any problems. But, like normal, only time will tell. So this is the back side of the main screen. If you look below the plug-in on the right, you'll see that there's an SD card slot directly mounted to the front. So no need to go to the board and try to find the slot. It's right in front, and it's very easy to access. Now looking here, you can see the belt setup hooked to the hot-end gantry. Now the gantry has 2 belts hooked to it on either side, but it's only 1 belt per axis. The X-axis, which is on the left-hand back side, rotates around the bottom half of the bearings that you see in the front corner. Now there is a twist on the opposite side, and that allows for no teeth to be running on the bearings, causing unusual wear or really unusual patterns in your print. On the right hand side is the Y motor. It's a little bit hidden by the gantry, but it's also where your end stop is. You can see that it has a wire chain that goes to the hot end assembly and 2 Bowden tubes. This is a 2-to-1 Bowden setup, which I'll explain here in a minute. But this design actually works out really well, and surprisingly it's a very, very sturdy cable chain. It comes with the printer, which is also a bonus. Now this is your typical Zonestar setup, minus the fact this is a mixing nozzle. So you have 2 filaments in, labeled Extruder 1 and Extruder 2, or digitally as Extruder 0 and Extruder 1, but you only have 1 hot end. What does this mean? Well, in reality, there's a turn when the filament coming in melts and comes towards the middle. Now the filament that's moving the most gets extruded more, but if there's a mixture, both extruder motors will move at the same time based on how much weight you put into it. If you want a little bit further understanding, I did do a video on this previously. Just go to my videos and you'll find it. Mixed extrusion. I like it, but will you? Once again, this works great for me. On the right hand side of the hot end assembly, you can see the Zonestar bed leveling sensor that comes with it. Now, typically it comes with the assembly. I don't typically use it on mine, but it's okay. I mean, it does work, and it's worked well with this printer. So far, that's all that I have for this printer, so other than build size. So let's look at a couple of the prints. So here's a few of the prints that I've done, playing with a couple different settings. As you can see my maker coin there, I did a color change in the middle, so that extruder 0 went to 0, and extruder 1, or in our case reality, filament color 2, took over. And then I switched back to filament color 1. That gave me the effect of what a lot of people do with filament switching without actually having to do it. I did the same thing on the tag here that you see. The whole base was in one color, and then when I got to the lettering and the design, I switched the colors just in the G-code, just by editing it. I did my typical baby dragon and a couple of benchies. Now, as you can tell in the boat in the background, something looks a little bit off. I printed one of these on my Zonestar P802 QR2, but I decided to take the same filament because it works so well and attempt it again. I thought it came out pretty good, and was very surprised that with the size of it, I didn't have any issues, especially since I didn't have this exactly honed in yet. But as you can tell from the bottom of it, all the way to the top, I did a color change. So it goes from blue to red with mixtures in the middle. Now the mixtures do change a little bit here and there, and I did this all manually through the screen on the printer versus editing the G-code. It still came out very well, and I'm very happy with this printer. This printer does boast different types of printings, from 20 millimeters a second all the way up to 150 millimeters a second. Well, that's where the 3 benchies come in. So the 3 benchies at 40 millimeters a second, this one came out very smooth. Using this color filament, it's kind of hard to tell, but there weren't very many issues with it. At 150, it's really hard to see, but it was not as smooth as it should have been. And at 100 millimeters a second, I got some of the best results, which I'm happy about, but I still got the hairiness that you get on a little bit of the webbing. Or stringing. I call it webbing just because of how thin it is. But quick torch or a soldering iron can clean that up pretty quickly. So there we are. So far I've told you a little bit about the printer, but I haven't really told you my thoughts. Well, here they are. The Z9M2 is not a beginner's printer, but for the intermediate to more master level printers, it's a fun design. It does print really well at 100 millimeters a second, but I do suggest slowing it down to 60 millimeters or even 40 millimeters for the more detailed prints. A couple little changes can be done here and there in the firmware settings, but you have that with every printer, hence why we're all makers, tinkerers for the most part. So this is not an out-of-the-box and print printer. You do have a little bit of setup that you need to do. Using the repeater host, which is how I do most of my printing through my computer, it's worked pretty well. I did do a couple SD card prints and I didn't have any problems with them, but that's what you get with these printers. I have not flashed the firmware to Marlin. It is the regular, most updated version from the Zonestar drive. It's their version of their firmware. It is open source, so you can do a lot of changes to it. But like I said, I've pretty much kept this printer stock and I haven't really made any major changes. Aside from all of that, print quality has been pretty good. I wouldn't call it the best, but that just takes time of getting it honed in properly. If you've seen any of my prints done with my first printer, the i3 that you see, the i3 clone you see sitting next to it, this one here, I have that honed in pretty well, which is why I've been doing most of my maker coins on it. But I plan to do some very, very large builds on the Z9. Just like from James the Print and Play, I'd love to do the arcade cabinet that he has out now. So, in the end, if you're looking for a Core XY printer that's solid, looks like it's built to last, has taken some real torture from me, then this is the printer that I would suggest for under 500 bucks. Now on AliExpress, they typically run anywhere between $450 to $500 depending on the sale. And they also offer a 3-to-1 Z9M2, which gives you 3 different colors to mix with. So if you're into the mixing or you're looking to do something a little bit different, you can do it with this printer. This will also help eliminate trying to spend all the money on a palette if you're just doing 3 colors. Now I do know that the palette does boast several other options, but in the beginning, if you're not ready for that type of investment, this is a good way to get started. Once technology advances, who knows, we might add a palette or get an MMU2 added on. But in reality, this works for me. It may not work for you. If this is what you want to do with your printer, then great. I do suggest this printer. I've had a lot of fun with it, and I wouldn't say no to it. Now, in reality, these are all my opinions, and there could be others out there that disagree with my opinions, and I'd love to hear from you. If you've had issues or there's other problems that you're seeing that I'm not, throw a comment. Let me know. I'll get in touch with you, trust me. If you do have a Zonestar printer and you're having any issues, feel free to contact Zonestar support. They've worked really well with me and walked me through a lot of small little issues here and there. Now the community is really to thank here, not anybody individual, for getting this printer up and running properly, because this was my first Core XY. So I went to the community for a lot of the issues that I was having. After banging my thoughts off of some people and listening to others, I've gotten this printer down to where I like it. Now, is it perfect yet? No, but that's, like I said, it takes time. So don't be afraid to make the investment if you want something that's going to take a little bit of work to get it where you want it. Because what I want and what you want could be two different things. So there it is. That's my review of the Zonestar Z9M2. If you have any questions, problems, or concerns, throw a comment below. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. If you want to support the channel, everything's in the description. Feel free. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Ring the bell for notifications, because there's going to be a lot of content coming up. So thank you, and I'll catch you later.